In lesson 10 of this course, I gave a simple 5-step process that would help you to take beautiful photographs in manual mode. In this bonus episode, we're going to go through some worked examples where I will give you examples of how I've applied this 5-step process in the field. Everything being shown today is going to be shown in Adobe Lightroom, which is a useful tool for photographers to edit and catalogue their images. Adobe Lightroom can be covered in a whole other course, but for the purposes of this exercise, some post-image editing has been applied, such as sharpening and imaging profile settings. If you look in the top left-hand corner, you'll see some important attributes of the image. The first is the image name. You can ignore this, it's automatically assigned by the camera. Next, we can see the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, 3 terms you should be familiar with after this course. The last is to do with the lens settings. For this course, we're not going to worry too much about it. The first example image I want to show is taken in the town of Oia, which is on the island of Santorini in Greece. This is a very famous view of the windmills, as well as the whitewashed apartments that you can find throughout the town. So let's work through this image step by step. Step number 1, let's talk about that composition. In this example, you can see the use of the rule of thirds. Now you might remember this from the episode where we talked about composition tricks. For this, I've used the nose of the windmill and the horizon aligning to the upper and lower third. You can also see this windmill itself aligns to the right-hand third of the image. We also have the middle and left-hand third taken up with negative space, and this creates a very nice geometric look to the image. I'm very happy with this composition, so let's move on to step number 2, ISO. You'll see that we used ISO 100 for this image. If you remember from the episode about ISO, raising your ISO degrades your image. This image was taken on a bright sunny day, so there's absolutely no need to use anything other than ISO 100. So step number 3, selecting aperture. Everything here, although it's a landscape image, is medium distance away from me. There's nothing particularly close, and I wasn't too bothered about the background, as these islands and mountains are so far away, and it's quite a hazy day, we can barely make them out. So as such, I chose to stick with just F number 7, right in the middle. Step number 4, to balance the exposure, I used a shutter speed of 1/160. This gave me, on my exposure meter, a reading of 0, or perfectly exposed. For this image, I did try exposing up and down, but given that it was quite a nice clear day, without too many clouds in the sky, and there was quite a large amount of detail in the white foreground, I didn't find that exposing up or down made a better image, and so I stuck with my original exposure. I'm really happy with this image, and now let's move on to look at another one, where I used a larger aperture. The second image I want to show today is of Burnham-on-Sea Lighthouse, which can be found in the county of Somerset in the UK. This image, if we go through step 1, once again uses the rule of thirds. This time I elected to align the horizon with the middle of the photograph, but you'll find that both the lighthouse and the sun align with the right-hand third. We can also see that this right-hand third of the image is noticeably brighter than the middle and left hand. This change in the brightness across the image naturally leads the viewer to the right hand side of the picture. We also have a very subtle leading line, as you can see from the edge of this water creates a beautiful shape that snakes through the image, ending on the right hand third. Lastly, this comes as part of the editing process, but I selected a wide crop, meaning that the image is more rectangular than the previous one. This is a common trick that you can use in landscapes. It just creates a nice wide landscape look to an image. Okay, step number 2, ISO. Once again, even though this is at sunset, it's still quite a bright image, and I really don't want to degrade the quality, and as such, I've stuck with ISO 100. How about aperture? Well, this picture is slightly different from the previous one. In this image, we can see the sand is very close to me. The lighthouse is very far away, and even in the very distant background we've got these lovely clouds. I want to have a long depth of field, which means I need a larger f number. I've selected f number 9 for this example. Lastly, in order to balance the exposure, I've had to use an extremely long shutter speed. This actually uses 5 whole seconds, which meant that I had to take this picture using a tripod. How about step number 5? Well, interestingly, this image I actually did underexpose by a stop. I wanted the picture to be slightly darker because giving a darker image gave me this beautiful contrast in the sky as well as the foreground. So for this image, I actually elected to underexpose by 1 stop, meaning that I aligned my exposure meter with -1. I'm really pleased with this image. I think it gives me a really nice dramatic landscape. For the next picture, we're going to look at something very different, and we're actually going to look at a very small subject. For my last image, I wanted to do something a little different. For this example, I've got a bug sitting on a field of grass which can be found at some RHS gardens in Surrey, UK. For step number 1 though, once again we've used the rule of thirds. If we can imagine the upper third running horizontally across the screen and the right hand third running vertically, we can see that the bug aligns perfectly at the intersection, once again giving a nice look. We can also see that the image is actually slightly brighter on the left hand side, meaning that the image darkens towards the bug. Once again, this creates a nice look to the image, and we can see that there is a brightness contrast across the picture. What about step number 2, ISO? Once again, as I've said before, this is on a bright sunny day. I really want the good quality image. I've selected ISO 100. This time though, for the F number, I've gone for a very small number. Now why have I done this? Well, I want to focus on the bug, but what I want is the rest of the grass behind the bug and in front to be out of focus. You can see that although we've got some nice sharp edges of the bug's legs, that the grasses behind it are blurry and in front are blurry. In this example, I've used f1.8, and you do need a special lens to be able to get that low, but you may be able on your lens to go down as low as 4, and even at that level you'll still get a similar effect. Now if we remember back to the episode around aperture, that means I have a very big hole for my aperture, meaning it's letting a lot of light in. So for step number 4, to balance that exposure, I had to use a really fast shutter speed. This is 1/2000th of a second. Very, very, very quick. But this gave me my exposed image. Now, for this image, unlike the previous one, when I tried exposing up and down, I actually elected to overexpose. The reason for that is I really liked these lovely highlights that shine through the grass. I don't mind it being overexposed because I think it creates a bright, warm look, and we can see so much of the detail within the grass. Really, this image is the exact opposite of the previous one I just showed. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this video has been useful. Really, what I wanted to show you is how we can look at our images and both critically appraise them from a compositional standpoint and also understand why we got the settings that we did. And we can see how these settings lead to create beautiful images, both the very small things and very big things, in both bright sunny days, sunsets, or even looking at a very small bug sat on some grass. It's a really useful skill to be able to have. I strongly advise that when you get back from taking pictures and you load them onto your computer and you're looking through, you just think in the back of your mind, why did you use the settings you did? And why do the images... I think a really good trick is when you get back from taking pictures and you load them up, to look through them slowly and think to yourself, why did I use the settings I did? And why do I think this picture looks good? What artistic tricks have I used? Or perhaps what rules have I broken? Thank you very much, and I really hope you've enjoyed this course.